Dr. Christian's show is just meant to be a hang. That's it. If you want to do laundry and not listen, this is meant to hang. This is meant to be a hang, right? Because we're all busy and we all like background shows. And I'm like, well, why not make one for the world? If you want to hang out with me, now you get to hang out with me. You get. Who the hell am I to say you get to hang out with me? No, it's my pleasure to hang out with you. That's what I should be saying, and that's what I really mean. And so this is just some simulation of getting to do that. And yeah, that's really it. And if I could bring value to any of your lives, that's the real reason I'm trying to do this. Because I want, one of the things that gives me purpose in life is just making other people's lives better. I want to provide value. I'm only 41. I'm not the oldest person in the world. I'm not the youngest person in the world. I'm right in the middle. So I've been through enough that people who might be a few minutes behind me in life, I could turn back and be like, hey, here's how this goes, heads up. And if I can entertain people who are older than me, then that's my way of giving back to them and paying it forward, or paying it back, actually, because they already gave to me. How nice. Anyway, so I figured for the first episode, I'm doing a solo ep, but the first real episode will be with Wifey when she's ready. But yeah, so first ep, I figured I would talk about who I am and why I'm on social media. I'm on social media. I already told you that. I want to provide value, right? But who am I first? Why should you even listen to me in the first place? And the answer is you shouldn't. No, that's not true. I'm a normal dude. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up on Staten Island, New York. So that'll be the first thing I decided I want to talk about is Staten Island. Because Staten Island, I actually loved growing up there. I grew up, I live on Long Island now. Long Island is known for its North Shore and its South Shore, and it's all its hot spots like the Hamptons and Montauk and all that. But largely, people kind of claim being either from the North Shore or the South Shore. Staten Island was the same way. Excuse me, I'm a little sniffly today. Anyway, Long Island, North Shore, South Shore, Staten Island was or is the same way. So I grew up on the North Shore of Staten Island. Now, it's largely the laughing stock of New York. People are like, oh, Staten Island, it's where all the, I don't even know what people say about it. The Guidos, or I don't even know if I could say that term. You're not safe saying anything these days, right? But it's known for its Jersey Shore type Italian Americans. And it's also known for being the world's largest garbage dump. What else is it known for? Anyway, it's known for being a Republican place. Long Island and Staten Island are the two parts of New York State that are largely Republican. And I think the rest of the boroughs are not. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I liked Staten Island because in the town that I grew up in, it was called West Brighton or West New Brighton. I think it's officially West New Brighton, but commonly referred to as West Brighton. On the North Shore, it's closer to the North Shore of Staten Island. It felt like a village, and I loved that. The streets are very narrow. They're like one-lane streets. There's a main street called Forest Avenue, and it's so easy to cross because it's one lane in each direction. So when things are small and intimate, you just feel like it felt like Cheers, like everybody knows your name type of thing. All the kids on the block knew each other, and everybody went to the same schools. All the different generations of people went to either, PS this or IS that, which stands for public school, intermediate school. Everybody always goes, which high school did you go to? Because there was only like 5 or 6 public high schools on the island. There's a bunch of Catholic schools, but it's a small little community, Staten Island, where everybody's going to know somebody that you know. And the running joke is everybody knows somebody, like everybody thinks they're connected to the mafia or something. I don't know. But how would I describe Staten Island? So it's like a village, but it does have its obnoxious people, right? And we're reminded of that. My wife is also from the same neighborhood, West Brighton, and we're reminded of that kind of every time we go there and we have an experience. So for example, one time we were in a parking lot, right? We were in a parking lot, and it's a tight parking lot. And the parking lot is on Forest Avenue and Bard Avenue. There's a little plaza there with a Carvel and a Starbucks. And if you're from the area, you know. And that's the neighborhood I grew up in. That's part of West Brighton. Anyway, we're getting in our car, getting out of our car, something like that. And then some lady in an SUV right next to us taps our car. But we don't know what the damage is. You know, it could have been a lot, could have been a little, because she hit the car as she's trying to pull into the parking spot. So I do what you're supposed to do. I just go to see is there any damage left from the impact? And I just get out and I look to see, is there a dent in the car? And right away with the defensiveness, the lady's like, sorry, I hit your Rolls Royce, making fun of our, what was it? A Honda HRV. That's where, so she's automatically, we didn't even say anything to her. I just looked to see if there's any damage. And already with the defensiveness and the rude attitude, and yeah, whenever somebody has an attitude like that, it does make me nostalgic. It makes me miss home because that's how I grew up. That's Staten Island in a nutshell. Everybody's a wise Alec. Everybody's got a smart response. And it's largely very funny. It's kind of annoying in the moment, but then you look back and you're like, that lady was hilarious. There was no reason for her to act like that. But it was just really funny. And wifey and I talk about that moment a lot because it was, if you can capture what it's like living on Staten Island in one moment, it was that moment. But I loved it. I loved, getting bagels at 4 a.m. Staten Island, the other boroughs don't respect it as one of the 5 boroughs. They're like, oh, that's not really New York. But really, I think it's better than all the other boroughs because I would not want to live in Manhattan. People like it. I'm not into that. It's a place to go and have fun and get the hell out. Brooklyn and Queens with the alternate side parking. Not all of the neighborhoods in those boroughs, but largely alternate side parking is a miserable experience. That is a huge deal breaker for me. Coming from Staten Island, we never had to deal with that. So that's insane. And then also there's like private houses on Staten Island. Not everything is an apartment building. Not that there's anything wrong with apartment buildings. I've lived in them. I actually like them. But if you want the option of a private house, Staten Island's got it for you. So New Jersey and Long Island are the burbs, right? They're the suburbs, lots of space. And people who grew up in the chaos, the center of the chaos, like in Astoria, Queens or something, they are used to their chaos. So they don't know what to do with all that space and they feel uncomfortable whenever they go to Jersey or Long Island. They're like, this is great. This is the boonies. They think it's like the country, which it's not. They're just they grew up in a rat maze and that's what they're used to. Staten Island, though, is beautifully like designed as a hybrid between being one of the 5 boroughs with the intimacy. It's got bodegas, it's got public transportation, it's got a bus system, it's got a train system, and it's got a ferry to take you to Staten Island, which is free. Is it free? The Staten Island ferry is free, right? It's free, yeah. You used to be able to take your car on it. I don't think you can do that anymore, but we used to do that as a family a lot. It was like $3 and you could just drive your car right onto the boat and just chill in your car on the boat going back and forth between Staten Island and southern Manhattan. Those were nice times, but I think that option's done. But yeah, so it's got cool features to it that makes you feel like it's sort of got the same speed and culture. Like I didn't grow up taking a cheese bus to school, a yellow school bus. I grew up taking public transportation since, I don't know, 6th grade. You know what I mean? That's kind of a uniquely inner city experience. Even though it was Staten Island, that's how it is. We took the Metro. What is it? What does MTA stand for? Metro Transit Authority? Something like that. Yeah, I was taking public transportation since junior high school to school. So it teaches you independence. And we used to have Metro cards. Actually, no, sorry. Before Metro cards, that's what it says. Yeah. Metro cards were for business people who took public transportation. Students had bus passes and train passes. And so I had a bus pass, but then they switched it to students have student Metro cards. So now you're really kind of like an independent adult taking public transportation to your job almost. That's what it felt like. Waiting in the morning for the bus to come with the coffee in your hand. as a sixth grader, there was something to that experience. You know, schools didn't really shut down too often for snow. Snow had to be really dramatic in order for school to shut down. So Staten Island wasn't just like this boondocks place. It was this nice, tight, intimate place, village type feel, which I loved, but it still had the speed of Brooklyn and Queens, if that makes sense. So I really did love Staten Island. It was a different experience, I think, for me than most of my friends because most of my friends there were Italian, Irish, one or the other, or mixed between those two. There were a lot of Albanians. I think when I got to high school, I met a lot of Albanian people. And there were also black kids and Indian kids and Asian kids. My neighborhood, though, I think from its early days was largely Irish. And then Irish and Italians intermixed a lot. So a lot of my friends were mixed Irish Italian. And me and maybe one other family uh, were Egyptian. We were the only Egyptians that I knew about, at least, uh, on that side of the island. There were a lot of other Egyptians in the Tottenville area, which is the South Shore. But yeah, so I was the only little Egyptian boy marching with my school in the St. Patrick's Day parade, and I loved it. It's kind of all I knew. Um, but I did have an Egyptian experience growing up because, as you may or may not know, I'm Coptic. So I grew up going on the weekends to the Coptic church. The Coptic means Egyptian, and the Coptic church experience is like it's not just a church, it's a cultural hub for immigrants from Egypt. And these churches even have like their own social workers to help newcomers acclimate and find jobs and get set up and all of that. And the idea is you get set up here and then you send money back. And the reason Egyptians were leaving Egypt, at least my uh, family and my community's subset of Egyptians, because there's different kinds of Egyptians, was because they were getting persecuted for, I guess, religious reasons back in the motherland of Egypt. So largely, many Christian Egyptians have left Egypt. There's still a big population there, but a lot of them left and went all over the world, and that's what we call the Coptic diaspora. And so my family came to New York, and my dad is a physician, and he opened up a practice on Staten Island, and so that's why I grew up there. I grew up right up the street from the old St. Vincent's Hospital, which is now known as RUMC, Richmond University Medical Center. And yeah, my dad would just walk back and forth from work. It was just such a cool thing. But it really did feel like a village. That's why I loved growing up there. Right up the street, we had Key Food. Key Food is a supermarket. So I would go there as a kid. My mother would just send me to go get groceries, like real old school stuff. I don't know if parents still send their kids to go, like, I was in fourth grade and I was doing like a full food shopping, carrying bags of groceries, and I would have to take a break every 2 minutes and set them down because I had multiple gallons of like milk and bleach, in my hands, and it was too heavy. And yeah, it was just an old school thing. But the neighborhood, at least my neck of the woods, was safe enough that I guess you could send your kids to do that. I don't even know if my parents thought that way. They just took a chance, but they didn't want to go, so they sent me. So that's what it was like. For anybody who's from that area, I don't know if you guys remember that the Key Food used to be known as Dan's Key. I don't know if that's a Key Food thing, or like if that's just that's what all Key Foods were named, but the one on Staten Island on Forest Avenue, right by Bard Avenue, was known as Dan's Key. That's a little Staten Island trivia. Yeah. And if you're from Staten Island, you'll remember some of these hot spots. I mean, the island has largely changed since way before I was even born. But when I was born, a lot of the hot spots in that area, one of them included a place called Pal Joey's. Pal Joey's was on the corner of Forest Avenue and Davis Avenue. It's right down the street from where I went to elementary school, Public School 45, PS 45. And it was just this pizzeria on the corner, perfectly located, and very popular place. And we would finish school, all these little kids, grades kindergarten through fifth grade, would walk. We all walked to and from school. Our parents just let us walk. Again, I don't know if that exists anymore because parents are so overprotective, which makes sense. But we would all walk down the hill from the school to Pal Joey's, and all these kids would just bum rush the counter in the pizzeria and ask for cups of water, and they never said no. They gave a billion kids little, those paper shot glasses. Like they're not even like full cups; they're just like paper shot glass sized cups of water. These little tiny cups of water. They'd give them out every single day, and they didn't care how many kids. Hey, can I get a cup of water? It was like a cool thing to do to ask for a cup of water, and they just give them out every single day. I guess it was good for business. I don't know. They eventually shut down, but it was a fun experience. So if you're from Staten Island and you're in your late 30s or 40s, you would remember that. What else was on Staten Island? Well, Staten Island's known for its for a few things. It's known for good bagels. It's known for good Chinese food. It's known for good pizza. Yeah, and I could definitely attest that all those things are definitely correct. That's very accurate. We were big on all of those things growing up. Blockbuster Video was a big part of living in West Brighton. There was one on the corner of Jewett Avenue, right on Forest Avenue, and it was 2 floors. So that was a big deal to go to Forest Avenue, to go to Blockbuster Video with your family, and then you have 2 floors worth of choices of what video are you going to pick out and take home and watch with your family, sitting on the living room and all that stuff. I mean, this is basic nostalgia stuff for kids who grew up in the 90s. But that's what it was like. It was nice, man. Basketball culture was big there. Like, I'm making this because I feel like Staten Island takes a lot of heat. And I've lived in Queens. I've lived on Staten Island. I've worked in Manhattan. I've worked in Brooklyn. I was a substitute teacher in all the boroughs except, I think, the Bronx and Manhattan. I have worked in the Bronx, though, as a physician. I'm a physician, in case I didn't mention that. So I've lived all over New York. I've lived in like 7 different towns on Long Island, and I went to school upstate in New Paltz, SUNY State University, New York, in New Paltz, New York. And so I've lived all over, and I can honestly say what an amazing childhood I had on Staten Island. I loved it. So to all the haters out there, Shaolin represent, you know what I'm saying? No. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm actually wearing the special Staten Island shirt I found on Amazon. Somebody's making stuff with Staten Island pride on it. Shaolin, Method Man, and Wu Tang represent. So anyway, yeah, that's my little rant on Staten Island, about being from Staten Island. I do love it, and I'll rep it until I die. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, but the culture on Staten Island definitely rubbed off on me because I grew up in a church with quiet, humble Egyptian kids because their parents are, and so I was just like this loud kid with sort of a bad attitude, and I didn't think that there was anything wrong with that. I was just my baseline, and I think it was a lot of an influence of growing up on Staten. Also, my family was a little loud, but I just remember being a kid, and I would go and hang out with my friends at church on the weekends, and they'd be like, "What's wrong with this kid? Like, why is he so high strung?" But they didn't understand that that was just how it was, like, normally on Staten Island. Everybody had a bad attitude. It was our love language, you know. So that's what that is. So I grew up, and I grew up going to church in Queens, and the church was Coptic Orthodox. Coptic is another word for Egyptian. It comes from the Greek word Egyptos, Coptic, and but it denotes, which this is heavily debated. I'm just going to tell you what I've learned. I'm not trying to debate or teach. I'm just telling you what my experience is. Coptic denotes Egyptian people prior to the arrival of Islam to Egypt. So the history of Egypt goes, it was polytheistic for a very long time. The pharaohs and all that ancient Egypt stuff, they were polytheistic, many gods. And then Jesus came, and Saint Mark, one of his disciples, came and brought Christianity to Egypt, the way Saint Peter brought Christianity to Rome, the way I believe Saint Patrick brought Christianity to Ireland. So Saint Mark is our guy, right? And so Egypt went from being polytheistic to monotheistic, and it may because Egypt was conquered and did some conquering, and you know how all those countries were back then. So I think Egypt became universal, like all of Egypt became Christian, but I'm not sure if that was after St. Mark or that was because of Alexander the Great. I really don't know my history, but there was a point where Egypt was all Christian, and then it transitioned where Islam arrived after Christianity, and then the majority of Egyptians today are descendants of people who converted, or I don't know what happened. So when we say Coptic, we're denoting Christian Egyptian, um, and most Coptic people are Orthodox. They're part of the Oriental Orthodox Church. There's the Catholics and the Orthodox. There was a schism, and the Orthodox had subdivisions: the Eastern Orthodox, which is like the Greeks, and the Serbian and the Russian, and blah 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 blah, more and more. And then on the other side, there's the Oriental Orthodox, which includes the Egyptians and the Indians and the Armenians and the Ethiopians and the Eritreans, and I don't know if I'm missing any. But so they had a little split. So we're under the Oriental Orthodox umbrella. And so the other are the Eastern Orthodox. And it's funny because Oriental means Eastern. That's the definition of Oriental. So you have the Eastern and the Eastern Orthodox. It's kind of weird, but I don't know much about that stuff. I'm just telling you that that's the church that I went to. All my friends growing up were Catholic. I went to Catholic school. Um, but am of the descent of being Coptic, which means Egyptian Orthodox Christian, and we are a minority. There's, I think, of all of the Egyptian population, I think only 10% are Christian, and that's not just Orthodox. That includes Protestants and Catholics, Coptic Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics. Where Orthodox are the majority of that little minority of Christians. Some people will say it's up to 25%, and they don't report it as more than 10% because it, I don't know, for money purposes or exploitation. I really don't know. But anyway, that's what I've learned is that 10% of Egypt is Christian. Either way, it's a minority, whether it's 25% or 10%, it's a minority. And that's my roots. I am a Coptic American New Yorker from Staten Island who now lives on Long Island and loves it. And it's the same as my wife, which is amazing because we did not know each other growing up. And she was one of the only other families in West Brighton who was Coptic Orthodox. I didn't have any Egyptian friends in my neighborhood growing up, and I didn't know that my wife was growing up right next to me. And we ended up meeting. I saw her. This is a crazy story. I actually remember seeing her face when she was working at McDonald's in the drive-through, and this is the year like 2004. And I'm like, that girl looks like she could be Egyptian, but there's no Egyptians in this neighborhood, so she's probably not. And then we ended up meeting at church in Manhattan 14 years later, 2018. And we got to talking, and I'm like, did you used to work in McDonald's? Like, we found out we're both from the same area and in the same field professionally. I'm like, did you used to work at McDonald's in the drive-through and wear a visor? And she's like, yes. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I remember your face. Her face burned in my memory, and I carried it with me for 14 years, not knowing I would ever see that girl again, let alone get married. So it's funny how life works, but I sure am fortunate. So, so Staten Island's been good to me. It gave me my wife, which is great. And oh, thanks. Irene goes, I love that story. In a neighborhood that was predominantly Italian Irish. I mean, it's such Irish pride that we have on Staten Island our own, on that side of the island, our own St. Patrick's Day parade. There's one in Manhattan already, but Staten Island's like, no, we have our own too. All right. So that's how not Egyptian that neighborhood is. And I still met my wife who's from that neighborhood. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, but anyway, so I ended up growing up, on weekends, I'd be going to a Coptic church. And, So it's an Egyptian church. Now you didn't. It wasn't like, it's not that you have to be Egyptian to be a member. That's not the point. The point is just that it was helping immigrants from Egypt acclimate to America. So that's why. And also, when these people who knew each other from Egypt met up in America, they don't know the first thing about immigration. So, or like how to become American. So they don't know anybody. So the church, it wasn't just like a spiritual parish. It was also a place of like, that's the only family we have in this country. So let's stick together and help each other grow. And that's how it happens for a lot of cultures, for pretty much for all cultures that have come to America. It never makes sense to me when people are like, oh, these immigrants or blah, blah, blah. At some point, you're a descendant, your ancestors, you're a descendant of immigrants. This was not anybody's country. It didn't. Um, there's a comedian. I'm a stand-up comedian, by the way, too. My generation of stand-up comics are largely influenced by Louis C.K. He's a hilarious comedian, but he has a joke talking about how when uh, white people came to this country, I think he says white people specifically, the Native Americans were here, and they said the white people were like, "Can we just have everything?" And the Native Americans were like, "We don't know what you mean by have exactly, but help yourself and enjoy just like the rest of us." Because this place it's Earth. It didn't belong to one group, and things are so different now where people are like, oh, yeah. Now, I'm not getting into what's legal and illegal. I get illegal immigration, all that stuff. But when people like think that this is their country and other people are guests in their, that really doesn't make any sense to me. This is not anybody's country. It's everybody's country. That's the point of the United States, is that it's a melting pot. And if it wasn't for brown and black people, as well as white people and Asian people, the country would not be as great as it is today. So, racism and xenophobia never makes sense to me. Like, if you are on a basketball team, an NBA basketball team, and there's some amazing player that's like number one draft pick, whatever, from another country. Let's say the country is the country is in the continent of Africa, and they come here. Everybody wants this guy. Would it'd be insane if all the other players were like, nah, man, we built this team. This guy's taking our job. Like, that doesn't make everybody be like, no, we want this guy on our team. That's how we should approach the concept of immigration, so long as it's legal and we're not bringing crime. I completely get that point. But we want the best of all people all across the world, because that's exactly what the United States is all about. That's how it came to be. This country is a baby. We just celebrated 250 years. That's a baby infant of a country in comparison to other countries. Like Egypt is what, around 5,000, how many years? Thousands and thousands of years. We just celebrated 250, and somehow we rose to the top in that time. That's insane to have risen to the top of dominating the world in such a short time, right? So how did we do it? We did it because we did it by people of different cultures and backgrounds and mother countries coming to this country and contributing their best. And so, of course, that's going to make sense where you take, you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm going on a little rant here, but my point is, it makes no sense when people are like, oh yeah, those people don't belong. Like, no, let's embrace them and be like, oh, thank you for coming. First of all, it's an honor to have you. And please let us know how we could make your arrival and stay better for you, as you commit to making our home a better and stronger place and safer place to be in. But human nature doesn't work that way. I guess everybody goes through hazing and all of that. And you know, um, you gotta earn your keep and pull your weight and prove yourself and all that crap. Um, yeah. So that's what it is. So anyway, so I grew up going to a Coptic church, and that was an awesome experience for me, because you got to see, what firsthand, what like F1, I think it is, generation, meaning people who just came to this country. You got to see what brand new arrival to this country looks like. A lot of my friends, my friends from Staten Island would kind of brag like, "Oh, my parents came through Ellis Island and blah 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 blah," and they claim they're, they're to be, there's a pride in being the descendants of immigrants. There's that thing, so which is cool, but we get to see that firsthand. If you, whenever you see an immigrant, it's like a privilege to get to know an immigrant to this country. That's actually that's like a cool thing. I'm born in this country, right? I'm born and raised here, so I'm not exactly Egyptian. I'm Egyptian American. I'm American Egyptian, whatever you want to call it. The American really is first. If you eliminate, I mean, I largely identify myself as Christian, but if you take away like my trade, I'm a stand-up, I'm a physician, my religious affiliation, all that stuff. If you're just going by like culture, I'm American first. I say that proudly because this was the story that God wrote for me. So I didn't choose to be born here. God chose that for me. So I don't, I'm born here and this country was already developed. We're out of the horse and buggy era. Cars are whizzing by. Technology's picking up. Soon the internet was developed after that. And this country is just now speeding ahead. So I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had everything kind of just given to me. So that's why when I see somebody who just comes from another country and now they're starting with nothing, they have an accent, they get made fun of, they don't have a lot of money, and they start taking jobs, multiple jobs, and barely sleeping because they also have other mouths to feed, like a wife and kids. And now they're driving a taxi cab or they're working at a meat truck or any of that stuff. It's an honor to see that process. And that's, I feel like, how we should look at it. Like, we didn't have to go through that, number one. And two, we get to witness it firsthand of like, wow, like I could have went through. So this is what real hard work looks like. I get to witness in front of me what character development looks like from scratch. I don't know if this is making sense, but I just look at it like, and because I've gotten to know people who've come from, I know many people who came to this country semi recently. They were not born here. And they take off. They take off because they're courageous, they're brave, they're fearless, or maybe they just seem that way. Maybe they're actually really fearful, but they're more courageous and brave than fearful, and they want to survive. So, I mean, I know people who've come from some of the most third world, behind the times, barely any technology or way behind the times technology. I mean, I'm talking about even in terms of like plumbing and stuff, villages in Egypt, and they come here and they take off. They take off. And that was largely the story of many of our parents and grandparents. And then by the time they die, they've got money in the bank, generational wealth. They became like CEO of whatever. Lots of them work in healthcare. I know one guy who it came from living in a third world country, and now he is living in Manhattan, crushing the stand-up. He's a stand-up comedian and a pharmacist and a SAG-AFTRA actor. His name is Fadi Risk. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever seen. Like, in real life story, like what it takes a genius to be able to accomplish something like that. I don't know. There's another guy named Bassem Youssef. He's an Egyptian stand-up comedian and I think actor. I'm not sure. The guy, like, it's insane. He started off in Egypt as a heart surgeon. Very hard to get into medical school, number one. That's any country in the world. It's medical school to get in is extremely competitive. To get in, to become a cardiothoracic surgeon is like top of the top. People don't get there. Like, that's really hard to get. And he got a fellowship in Cleveland Clinic, which is the top of the top here in America, right? So he became a heart surgeon. I think this is his story. You could fact check this, but I think this is his story. Anyway, he shifted from medicine to entertainment during the revolution in Egypt in 2010 and 11, and he became Egypt's Jon Stewart. He became as famous and with a satire show, and he was the equivalent of Egypt's Jon Stewart. He ended up getting ousted out of Egypt, barred from returning to Egypt because he spoke freely, and it was in contrast to the government. Whatever, that's what happens in many countries. Had to flee, come to America, start from scratch, left his medical career. So that's he eliminated that. Worked really hard his whole life, then didn't even go back to that and started from scratch doing stand up here again, and then got famous here in America again. How do you mess with that? That's insane. Like that's and you get to see things like that. That's so inspiring. So that when people are like, "Oh yeah, these immigrants," it's like, dude, no, it's just another human being in a place that you happen to be in. And if you're complaining like that, maybe you're just not working hard enough because again, go using myself as an example, I was given everything. I'm a physician in stand up, but that's not to any credit to me. It is, I worked hard, but in comparison, like I had a head start. And some of these people who've far surpassed me started from way behind me. How am I going to be bitter and hate on that? You can't. If that's if you got a bitter tone, that's on you. You know. So anyway, how am I doing here? You think so? Yeah. So, anyway, I think I'm done for the night, but this is just a start to who I am. As I said before, I'm a Christian guy. I'm not a very good Christian at all. So please don't take it as that when I say I'm a Christian, like, oh, I'm a Christian and I'm righteous. Quite the opposite. I'm a sinful person with a bad attitude who's from Staten Island who needs Christ. That's why I'm a Christian, because he saves sinners. And that's the category of Christian that I claim. So that's what I mean by that. I'm Coptic American. I'm Egyptian American, and I'm Christian. That's a big part of my identity. As I said before, I'm a husband, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I'm a physician. And those two parts equally occupy and fill who I am, my time. I found myself in both of those things. I was in New York City for a few years trying to do that whole industry competition thing and trying to grow through the industry. And then I'm like, social media is the way for me. I don't have it in me. I have a friend who's a comic, and I was telling him, I'm like, I already went through this trying to climb the ranks thing in medical school. You start as a first year, second year, then third year. You enter the hospitals and people treat you like you walk up to doctors who are in the middle of their workday. You feel like a stray animal. They're like, dude, what do you want from me? You're wasting my time. I got to see a zillion patients. Get out of my face. That's what it's like, and then you got to work your way through, and then you get to residency and you start from the bottom again. So I went through all that. I went through 4 years of med school. I took a gap year. Sorry, 4 years of high school, then 4 years of college. Took a gap year. Was between college and medical school. I was a substitute teacher for New York City public schools, all five boroughs. And then I went to medical school for 4 years. Took another gap year. Uh, Started stand up in this. I graduated medical school in 2012. Immediately, December 2013, I started stand up. And then I did 4 years of residency. And now here we are. So I work in nursing homes as a physician during the day, and I do stand up and now social media at night. I'm a married guy, no kids yet, but that's my story. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. Um, because we're just getting started, and I want this to be a place where, if some of this interests you, great. And if not, and you're cooking and you're not paying attention, that's fine too. I just want to hang with you and want you to hang with me. So I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. Stay tuned for episode 2. And please follow me on social media, Dr. Christian's World. That's like my main handle on all the socials. I have other accounts for different things, but you can follow me if you just want stand-up comedy, Christian Comedy. If you're Coptic and you're watching this, then Dr. Christian's World, or there's another handle, that Coptic Comedian or Coptic Chanting. I do a bunch of different things on social media, but try to find me. You could find me if you look hard enough on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and now YouTube. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.